call this meeting to order. Please rise for the
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start with Citizens Forum.
We have two. We'll start with Lindsay Shortner and then Spencer Carls.
Just state your name and your address, and you can say where you are.
Sure. Lindsay Shortner, 2942 South St. Augustine Street, Pulaski, Wisconsin, 54162. I'm the digital learning specialist at the middle school and then the vice president of the PEA. So, good evening, members of the school board and district administrators. On behalf of the Pulaski Education Association, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Over the past several years, the PEA has worked hard across the district to build relationships, listen to our colleagues, and advocate for both our staff and our students. We're proud that this work was reflected in the recent certification election, where 75% of total staff voted in favor of the PEA representing them. As we look ahead to negotiations, we do so with a spirit of collaboration and a deep commitment to the shared goal we all hold, doing what's best for students of the Pulaski Community School District. It is truly an honor to represent our coworkers in this process. We appreciate your time, your partnership, and your continued support for the educators and learners of our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Spencer Carls, 1442 Sundew Road, Sabisky, Wisconsin, 54171. I'm the secretary treasurer of the PEA, and I'm also an art teacher within the district. I've been teaching at the high school for 9 years, and then transitioned from Illinois to Hillcrest next coming year. So I prepared a statement as well. Good evening, members of the Pulaski School Board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. With cell phone use discussion on the agenda, I would like to ask the school board to look at cell phone language in the handbook to address a concern that I believe has a growing impact on the academic environment and overall student well-being. Specifically, the need for stronger, clearer language in our student handbook regarding cell phone use. Stronger, clearer language would help benefit both students and teachers in addressing this growing issue in the classroom. As we know, cell phones have become an almost inseparable part of daily life, but their presence in classrooms has increasingly presented challenges and distractions during instruction, interruptions in the learning process, and in some cases, negative social interactions that stem from unrestricted device use. While the current policy provides some guidance, I believe it would serve both students and staff to strengthen expectations with more specific and enforceable language. This may include clearly defined no-use zones or times during the school day, consistent procedures for violations and consequences, guidelines for when and how phones may be used for educational purposes with teacher discretion. A more robust policy not only helps maintain a focused learning environment, but also ensures fairness and consistency in enforcement across all grade levels and classrooms. Our goal is not to be punitive, but to support responsible use of technology and to foster a culture that prioritizes respect and academic success. I respectfully ask the board to consider reviewing and updating the cell phone policy in the upcoming revision of the student handbook to provide stronger, clearer language that would help benefit both students and teachers in addressing this growing issue in the classroom. Thank you for your time and your continued commitment to providing the best possible learning environment for our students.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to the first agenda item, construction and future planning update.
So we're going to turn it over to C.D. Smith. So a reminder, we have Mark, Andy, and Mitch from C.D. Smith who have been with us since the beginning of our projects and kind of requested, but also just kind of our standard update at this time.
Yeah, I'll start. So thanks for having us. Last time we spoke, I think was early October. So just to kind of give you an update on where things are at, we'll start with the Hillcrest Elementary project. 58,000 square feet of brand new addition, and in some manner or another, pretty much every inch of the existing building is being touched be it remodel or mechanical systems, etc. So we opened up the addition that we actually held a meeting in last fall, as well as revamped the parking lot and all the site utilities. And then we've been working since then on not only the addition to the north of campus, but between Miss Wells and Nick, they've been very accommodating in getting us into existing spaces and really getting a jump start on efforts that realistically wouldn't have started until last Friday. So we've been able to get a good jump on that. But just kind of wanted to give you where we were back in October and where we are now. That's your outside elevation, or the east elevation of the larger addition. That is the cafeteria kitchen space, the gymnasium, 4K playground, and that's the new admin office, which actually, as of today, has now been cleared to allow school administrators to work in over the summer. So it allows us to take their existing offices and continue on with that remodel. This corridor separates the new addition from what was the gym and is now going to be the library. We started in there 2 weeks ago, I believe, and that remodel is already looks a lot different than it does in this picture, but we don't update it daily. And that's a rendering of what we will be turning it over to come August.
Yeah, and then Sunnyside Elementary, similar story. We did an addition there. We started earlier than Hillcrest, so that was turned over in October 2024, or at the end of October. That addition holds a cafeteria, a handful of classrooms, the kitchen, and the new front office. The big crown jewel at Sunnyside is the skylight in that core remodel. We've been calling it the core. But we did some remodeling last summer. We started that skylight remodel once we turned over the addition, so it freed up space for us to take that center area. Concurrently, we did the library remodel and addition on the south end of Sunnyside. What was the kitchen and the cafeteria became the library, so that space was turned over in March. And then, so just a few pictures of the progress on that skylight remodel. So in November, we took the roof off the center of the school in big sections like that, took them apart on the ground. This was the Wednesday, I think, before Thanksgiving, so no kids. December, the roof is gone. We've taken out the floor, which was a series of classrooms in the center there, and then the picture on the right is down in the basement what was the library. So if you were down there, where the plywood wall is in the background was kind of that open connection from the hallway to the library. So just to give you a sense of direction there. In January of 2025, we started putting new steel, structural steel in there, which supports the existing structure around that core as well as the new roof and skylight there. Also started pouring some concrete floors there. In February, more concrete inside. There's a large learning and collaboration stair there that will connect the first floor to the lower level. In March, as I said, we turned over the library. This was before it was furnished, but totally different space than what it was. It's pretty cool to walk through there. What was a cafeteria and a kitchen. So this space is now being used in the core, the middle, the skylight area, March and April, a lot of drywall, a lot of framing. So this picture, April 2025, is just a lot of drywall finishing. You can see the handrails are up around that mezzanine. The stairs there in the back of the picture are covered by just a temporary platform that we use to get materials in and out through the roof. May, so towards the end of last week and the weeks before, we set the skylight. Actually, early May, we set the skylight on that roof which got us watertight to move into painting. So over the last few weeks, we've been doing a lot of painting in that space, installing cubbies, casework, and now that the students and staff are gone for the summer, we've taken the last few areas of remodel to do that demo and really finish out Sunnyside. So I think this is the last picture. Yeah, so really excited about the work that happened at Sunnyside. We're excited to show it to you soon, and it's really quite the transformation.
The schedule for Sunnyside looks like it comes really close to the start of the school year. How are you guys feeling about that? I know that's been kind of a question, right?
It'll be done.
Okay.
Absolutely. I don't want to say early August, but I'm kind of hoping for early August.
Okay.
So we've gotten a lot of work done from November to now that we were planning to do this summer. We have 2 classrooms to remodel and basically paint around that core. So
Okay.
it's I don't want to say it's a walk in the park either, but
So the teachers have enough time to get in there and get this
absolutely,
stuff.
we're in
Okay.
really good shape. Yeah,
What about
Speak for Andy,
Hillcrest?
Hillcrest.
Same situation. I mean, we've been fortunate that we've been able to chip away at it throughout the year. But like Mark said, nothing's ever on cruise control, but it's not as nerve-wracking as it could be. So we're in a really good spot.
Every day in the summer is critical. It's really 10 or 12 weeks of work, and so it's a push, but we are in a really good spot. I mean, at Sunnyside, Principal Mark and Nick have been. We couldn't be where we are without the administration. So
I would echo that. Many times over.
huge thank you to them.
So Mark and Nick, we had suggested that to parents that we were going to start on time if we could, but that some kind of notification would go out in June with the final decision. So at this time, it's contemplated all students, all schools starting on the first Tuesday of September.
I have no doubt in my mind, we will start on time.
Okay.
We have that set to go out,
That will be communicated out.
and it will be communicated again as we're heading into summer school.
Are you going to touch on the financial side, Mark?
Yes, yeah, right here. So as far as the projects that we've done construction on, so what's remaining for us is Sunnyside and Hillcrest, big picture, and both those projects are financially in really good shape. And as we wrap up the last of the demo work, which can be the source of surprises, we're really looking forward to returning that contingency and finishing the finishes through these buildings. So under budget on both projects, expecting to return savings to the district, and again be on time for the end of the summer here. So overall, the balance is over $1 million under the referendum. So. Any specific questions on the sheet?
I'm just curious, what was the big driver for the $900,000 in contingency use at Sunnyside? Is there anything, one thing that kind of drove it?
There's not one big thing, but we've replaced all of the roof at Sunnyside. So the shingle roof was replaced along with all of the membrane roofs there.
Okay.
The doors in Sunnyside have all been replaced. The
What gym floor going in there to
Wood
match
gym floor,
Hillcrest?
data cabling all upgraded. So those are some of the bigger ticket pieces.
Okay.
But
We would have been leaving behind parts of like the shingle roof over the gym stuff. So everybody's on site. We're able to check pricing because we've gotten the major project pricing. So we knew now is the time to do it.
we've
Yeah, I
replaced
agree.
a lot of cast iron pipe eliminated from the building, original cast iron pipe that causes a lot of maintenance problems under floors and in walls, so that stuff's been
Yeah,
eliminated.
anything we could get our hands on for cast iron, for anything, just the top is gone out of it. Even the stuff leaving the building, going to our septic system, it's all been replaced.
Okay. And then Mark, the remaining capital, so just under $800,000, right? Is that going to roll into that building systems and capital maintenance portion?
Yeah, so kind of
part of this future planning conversation today, again, those are the three options of is there capital maintenance that needs, so we're continuing to monitor that on that immediate and emerging needs list. Is it part of a debt restructure? Should we continue with additional projects? So those are kind of the options that are out there. So we'll continue to discuss that. And then the one, could be a small variance still on just my end for earnings as we close out the financial side. So we'll continue to update on that.
I have nothing else, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just on the construction side, along with Nick's team and the administrators, just thanking the staff that put up with the construction that let us get ahead. And the students were great, in closing off areas, and I would see them, walking in straight lines all through it. So just recognizing that they went through a year that really helped us get ahead. So thank you to them.
Thank you. We appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's exciting. Thank you. No other questions? Okay.
Thanks.
Moving on to the exchange of initial proposals with the Pulaski Education Association regarding total base wage bargaining consistent with Wisconsin Statute 111.
Future planning.
We have
future
kind of a
planning,
part,
I'm sorry.
We have kind of a part two, which is following up on the survey question.
Then hold on to that second agenda item, future planning.
So while we had C.D. Smith here, I wanted a little preview of the survey question that went out. If you saw the survey, here's the question here about future planning. So specifically on facilities and building and construction projects. So this is what was asked. We just wanted to share today the results of that question. So I'll give everyone a minute to read it if you haven't seen it. But so again, same question, exact same question was asked on two different surveys. So this was the parents' result, and their options were to explore a capital referendum. You can see there at 38%. Do nothing at this time would be not to explore it, 22%, and then 40% were need more information. As expected, our staff was a little more favorable, so you can see the percentages there. Our feedback based on this, my two talking points would be, what advice would you give the school board? There were more yeses than nos, right? So that number one, that's obvious. And then number two is there's the largest percentages, hey, we need more information. The only way to give them more information is to explore it further. So that's why at this time the recommendation would be to continue to explore those projects.
A quick question, Mark, and this would apply to both questions. What was the response rate? How many was this sent to and how many actually responded?
I don't have the top of my head. I
That
know
would skew the numbers.
I know we'll be
Right,
talking
either way.
about that
Okay.
this will be talked about again on the 18th in detail.
Okay.
So I'll probably leave that up to school perceptions, or I can send it tomorrow when we grab it. But
Okay.
I believe from our initial conversations, the return rate was enough to go on for all survey things, all questioning, but I don't have that info.
Okay.
So while they're here, any other questions on the results? When we talk about potential projects, we just wanted to share, this has just been a little bit updated since referendum planning in 2022. These are the projects that would be done at the high school site that would be explored further. That is, the majority being updated in that red area. That is a community fitness center, a wrestling room, and then a indoor turf facility.
Were all of these potential projects explored in the first go round when we
Yes,
told people on the
they were.
capital
So if
referendum?
you remember the survey from 2021, it was a tax tolerance survey, and we tested a base project, and then we had additional projects. Some of these projects actually tested pretty well. It was, a little bit on the questionable side, but even our base tax project had to be scaled back. So that's why these projects were not considered. We took the base project that tested at that 55% and brought it down so that we would, have better approval, right? So they were tested, they were surveyed. This one was top out of all those additional question projects was the addition at the high school. So that's why that would be our top one to explore just based on that information.
Where does the wrestling room look like? It would be in one of the blue renovation areas? Is that
Yeah,
where
we can-
is-
The blue area is locker room renovations. Our locker rooms are the old 90s style, so they would renovate that whole area, and then the wrestling room would be on the top of the plan there, the skinny, yep, right
Here?
Nope, that's the indoor turf area.
Right next to you.
To the left a little bit, yep, right there is the fitness center and then the wrestling room attached to it. I think right now they were looking at 4 or 5 mats to be able to.
And that would be like usable for possibly the future for female and.
Oh, it has to be used right off the bat for female.
Oh, yeah.
and male.
Okay, good.
State champs.
We are currently practicing in one of the resource centers. Matt, isn't it the business one?
Yes.
So the girls are putting mats down in the business center pod right now to practice.
Is this going to be presented as an all or nothing?
I think it's very early to tell. I think you'd have to go through the same process of tax tolerance, right? So when we get into, how do you get to that point? I just want to touch on the other projects quick, which is the updating middle and high school career and technical education spaces, and then district-wide classroom improvement. So we don't have a whole lot on that. That wasn't tested in great detail. I don't know if teaching learning wants to talk about some of these spaces and what they're seeing, for a need for an update and why that was questioned as a higher up one.
Yeah, I would say we've been about 2 years into our CTE advisory committee, bringing that back and having probably 40, 50 people that come together twice a year and have conversations. And one of the things that, as they're talking about curriculum and where we should go and how we should be preparing students in the CTE areas, they're also talking about and looking at our facilities and helping us, to what students need in order to be able to go out and be college, career, and community ready. And so, and basically we'd be looking at touching all of our areas. Middle school, if you've been up in our fax room or in our middle school tech ed, it was, yes, when the middle school opened, great facilities because it was it was our high school facility, so they had kind of the top notch at that point. But now we're 25 years later and we haven't updated any of those things. So even for our middle school students, we'd be looking at some of their equipment in that shop is probably from 1960s when John Corbin was probably a teacher back in there, if any of you had him. So that'd be an area we'd be looking at. Our greenhouse, which was amazing when that middle school, when that was the high school and they built it, but that needs a few renovations as well. I know when we were looking at tech ed, we also invited the egg teachers because they share the shop area with egg mechanics and diesel mechanics, and so there were some other needs that they talked about that are in other area school districts. So they talked about a farmette or a place for kids to also practice their animal husbandry skills and continue on with the greenhouse. Our fax, we have an amazing culinary arts program, but again, when that was first built 25 years ago, that was state of the art. Things have changed, and we just need to keep up with those times and those changes, as well as our business areas. We've been out in other districts like Minnetonka, and we've seen they have a Vanguard program that is pretty amazing and replicates what is happening over in the Twin Cities, and whether it's General Mills or 3M or whatever company it is. And so we'd like to do some of those replications for our students who will head out into the business world and have them experience those types of learning areas as well. So our CNA program, I think he has a picture here of that.
Top right.
Yeah, we have an amazing program where probably about 30 students each year get their CNA certification. It gives them a jump start on their medical careers and what they might be going into. But all of that was donated. When Jeremy Pock was here, he really, that was kind of a passion, and he pounded the pavement to get what we do have for that room. But we'd like to do upgrades in all of those areas. And I think you'll see on our next school perceptions when they're here next month, there were 5 areas that were the top for what our community or our families were saying were needs, and it was academic and career planning, it was life skills, and CTE. And so I think this, if we were able to look at doing some upgrades, would really help in those areas.
So like the bottom middle picture right there with that cooler, that came from Hillcrest yesterday. So now I put their cooler in there so they can hang their cows and their deer and everything. But now they lost their space for a fish tank, so it's always, we love to add something, but then they lose their space. It's consistently happening to them. But that cooler is from Hillcrest actually.
And then the final piece, not capturing those questions, is really a check-in with our community growth and projection. So if you go back to 2021, we did a 15-year projection. It really would be a check-in to see, are we hitting our marks on where we said we were going to have students? Has community development changed? So we're making sure that we're hitting all of those schools. So if there is a need, that we're addressing that as well. So what we would be looking for next steps is continued engagement with staff, parents, and community, potentially setting up tours of these facilities. Some of these pictures don't do it justice, especially people who want to see the pool or some of those areas, or if you want to see a wrestling practice, how congested it is. We would follow that up with listening sessions, kind of present additional information. We'll follow up on survey feedback. Part of it was to list your name if you wanted additional contact on the subject, so we have a list of those individuals, as well as our regular pillar group. And some people have reached out to me today even to say, hey, I see this is on there, can I get some more information? There would be an expanded future survey. So again, the large group not surveyed is your non-parent, non-staff. We know that if this is a community-based project, that that support is crucial. And then just kind of continuing to work down this timeline and roll back with potential projects. So updating costs, updating financial plans, and financial impact.
At least we had initial estimates as to what it would cost for those high school projects, right? Back when we were looking at the original referendum. In terms of the CTE projects that are just being kind of conceptualized right now, is there a way to get an idea of what potential costs of those projects would be as we have those listening sessions and discussions with individuals?
Yeah, Nick, I don't know if you want to talk
Yeah,
about
we would just have to start meeting with those. What do they want, right? The driving for what is this new fax room going to look like at the middle school? It's from the 60s, right? So what does a new one exactly look like? And that's going to drive for C.D. Smith and Mitch to be able to put a budget number to it. So we'd have to talk to some staff and figure out what direction they would like to go.
And one of the things we were going to do at our next October meeting with our CT advisory was have Bray and C.D. Smith come in and show and showcase other projects that they've worked on to show kind of what is happening out there in other school districts in education, so that we can kind of blend our CTE partners with our teachers to drive that as well. And we did lots of visits last time with Tech Ed. We did Seymour, Wausau. Where else did you guys take us? Do you remember where we all went?
We went to some different schools.
We did some Fab Labs too mixed in there. So a couple of Fab Labs down in the Madison area and up north in Merrill. So we did get into probably a good 10 different facilities, 12 maybe even.
If this came together, we would vote, the community would vote on November of 26.
That would be our proposed time frame, correct? Or sorry, November 26. So it seems like a long time, but when you get into when it has to be approved, and we can talk about that whole process of it's really the board who makes a final vote to say this is on a ballot. I think that would have to be done by August. So it really does tighten that time frame of getting. We're right on time right now for where we should be planning.
Would there be a committee at some point that would involve community, board?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on those groups of what we have. We kind of do that through our different types of engagement, so there's not really a standing group, but it really is led by board administrator.
It'd be nice to get the village involved right away.
Yeah, I
with
mean,
the pool issue. And
sure. Yeah.
How early on in this, Mark, do we start to figure out what the debt load versus tax load looks like? Because I think that's probably going to be a big question for a lot of people.
Yeah, and so I've been working with, before we even sent out the survey, I've been working with Baird, who's usually our financial advisor on surveys. I have scenarios worked out with them, so I'll say it very carefully because it gets misconstrued a lot, but as of today, if we were to go in November 26th, the district could issue up to $40 million in general obligation debt without increasing the current debt levy. So simply said, you have $40 million worth of project and you continue your debt levy at the amount it's at in that plan. So I mean, it gets construed as no tax impact, building doesn't cost anything. It's simply that, no increase to a debt levy that is existing. And that's just a starting point. So then you take all this feedback and say, hey, where do we net out? That kind of is the tax tolerance of, is that our goal? Is our goal less? Is our goal more? Again, this project is community driven, as it will result in a survey question and a project question to complete something of this nature.
So your assumptions will be available early on in the process?
Yes, all throughout it. And if something changes,
Yep.
Your driving rate of interest rates or something changes at the state level, we'll continue to update that. But that's where we sit as of today, and that is looking out to a March of 27 debt issuance. So a lot of assumptions in there.
Okay, thank you.
Do you need anything specifically from us on this?
Really, we need a,
Head nod?
Yeah, we need a head nod to say continue on this work or not. So.
Does anybody have any objection with them continuing to look into this?
No.
Go forth and continue, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else on the future planning update? Thank you all. Moving on to the wage bargaining.
So with the union being certified this year, we are looking to offer up to CPI, which is 2.95 for salary increases for next school year. The state really governs what we are allowed to bargain with them, and that is the max that we are able to bargain with them. So we would be looking for an additional 0.05% outside of collective bargaining. So then all staff, except for temporary and casual employees, would see a 3% increase this coming school year.
I make a motion to approve that at 3%, 2.95.
So you really don't have to approve yet.
Oh, that's good. I'm here for it.
So I do have a quick question though.
Yes.
So the 2.95 is the wage increases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Continuous thing. Is the 0.05 the same thing, right? So it'll be 3% increment, okay.
Yes. Yep, all on base wages.
It's not a one-time thing, okay.
So then.
So we're approving them.
Yeah,
All right.
so I'd make a motion to move forward with the proposal.
I'll second. Okay. We have a motion and a second to move forward with the exchange of the initial proposal with the PEA as presented. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. All right. Moving on to cell phone usage discussion. Dennis, I will turn this over to you because this is your agenda item.
Well, I asked to have this on the agenda a month or two ago, and I appreciate you putting it on the agenda. Spencer, you covered everything better than I could cover it. The only thing so all we need to do tonight as a board is just like basically give them a nod. Could you come up with a better cell phone policy for our district and our elementary schools for us to approve? That's really all we need to do right now. So, and the one thing I would like to do is break it down from K through 5. And I talked about that with some of the teachers, and I have some examples here. For K through 5, it would be no cell phone use at all during the school day. If students bring a cell phone to school, it should be powered down and left in a backpack/locker. Otherwise, everything Spencer brought up, basically how they have access to their phones in the classroom, middle school and high school is what I would like to change the policy on. No cell phone in the classroom, but I'm not creating a policy tonight. We are not. We're just giving the administration the nod to come with some better policies for us. That's what we're doing tonight.
And I'm just asking for a clarification. Are you looking for them to look at the policy that we have in place or the handbook or both?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
I just wanted
The
to
handbook
make
is
sure that
everybody's
that's
policy, right?
and you're looking at both, so there would be 3 handbooks, the high school, the middle school, and the elementary schools.
And I would like the elementary school to be a separate policy or a separate thing in the handbook than
So
the
it
middle school?
is, Dennis, and it almost reads exactly what you said.
Did it?
We understand the need for some of our students to have cell phones at school. If your child brings a cell phone to school, they are required to be powered off and kept in student's backpack or locker during school hours. The school cannot be held liable for lost, stolen, or damaged phones or other personal property. Students in violation of this policy will have the item removed from their possession and kept in the office until claimed by the parent. Continued use may result in further disciplinary measures.
That's K through 5?
That's K through 5.
Okay.
Okay, so do you have them handy? Because these are old, right? Like what's
The ones that
uploaded
were
in
posted.
box.
Yeah.
Our 5136 is from 2021, and Neola has policies from 2024 that the second one or third
Our
one.
current policy would be
5136.
5136, but Neola has 5136.1.2 and .3, and one of them specifically talks about cell phones, but I, as a board member, would like to have a stricter
But
policy
we
during classroom instruction.
But that point
primarily.
3 isn't specific to our district.
No, that's not, I'm just saying, the main goal of mine tonight is to have a stricter policy for cell phones during
Within the
classroom
admin
instruction.
guidelines, within the handbooks you're talking about, not necessarily the policy.
Oh,
I would agree with
policy,
I would agree with her,
saying,
right? I mean, unless our policy is something contrary.
Right, because we don't have 5136.03.
We do not,
That's
right.
not our policy. That's a different school district's policy. So that would require you, as a board, they may have custom built a 03 in their policy simply because 01 and 02 didn't cover it, or they had different layers. That happens. So we don't have that piece. So our 5136 is pretty specific around cell phone use because it was current, because we were newer members of Neola.
so those are Neola policies also, we could look at adopting those.
I guess in reference to the handbook, we've looked at this pretty closely just to try and understand maybe where there would need to be tightening, because right now it says that students are expected to refrain from using cell phones during instructional time. That's in the handbook. I mean, we talk about certain locations that shouldn't be. It specifically says it can't be activated or utilized in classrooms, gymnasiums, locker rooms, shower facilities, or bathrooms. And meeting with staff as I've started to transition into the role, like I did do one-on-one meetings with staff, heard cell phones are a challenge, but I also heard that, part of the challenge is we have policies or we have language in place. It's more of, are we following through or doing something to ensure that these are being followed by students, both as a staff and as administration? There were a few things that got brought up to me either through Google Form or through conversation. So I don't know what exactly would be changed specifically. I also know, like, in 22, 23, and maybe somebody from the high school that's been there can speak to this, the Guiding Coalition there worked really hard and bought phone caddies for every classroom and created like a technology sheet that was up in every room that said put your phone and your earbuds in here every day when you come into class, and it needs to be turned off, and then here are what happens with these violations. And I don't know that I've seen that in recent years, so I don't know, like, it's not as though we haven't had really tight things that we're doing at the building level, but we have to remain tight on those things, I think, is part of the challenge. But again, I haven't been there, so I can't speak to all of that. I just know that definitely been a lot of things that have been tried.
Well,
I think that's a great explanation as to, without even being there, that's impressive that you were able to nail it that good. I mean, I do think it comes down to consistency, because it's right. It's like you said, you right in your syllabus, you put right in there, what the cell phone policy is. I pull it right from the handbook. It says right there the steps in order to follow. Follow it. Be consistent.
Yeah, I would just say to build on what Lindsay was saying or add to that, like in 23-24 in that handbook, the language was parents and students are encouraged to refrain from using cell phones during instructional time, communicate to limit disruptions, and then we change that to students are expected to refrain from. So that's the current language that's in there, and then it does talk about not using them during instructional time unless the teacher, the policy that's written out does allow teacher discretion to say, hey, I want you to take out your devices because we're going to do this activity with them or whatever. And then it does clearly articulate violations, but I think to what's been said, as a school community, we can improve
Follow through, accountability.
Sometimes it's easy to just not address Johnny if Johnny's got his phone out or wherever the case might be, but if we all have the same expectations and enforce them consistently, staff through administration,
And I
the
would,
language is really good language.
and I would say as an administration, making sure that the violations process is followed.
Right.
Like, if it's a step one, like this is what happens. If it's a step two, this is what happens. I think it's hard for teachers sometimes to enforce it in the classroom if they don't feel like it's going to be enforced at the admin level. And so absolutely, we need to make sure that we're doing that. So.
I think another challenge, just a challenge that I've been trying to keep you all closely updated on, is the fact that this is truly being talked about at the state right now. So I am hesitant, and I'm fine with our administration or our teacher teams, however, guiding coalitions, taking a look at handbook language and tightening up on what they're doing at the building level. I feel that our policy is appropriate for where we're at right now for cell phone usage. Knowing that I believe that there's going to be a change coming our way, and I wouldn't want us then to have to recalibrate with the changes. And I'll let you know that some of the changes, and we just had a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel article came out today about banning cell phones in Milwaukee public schools. So I read through some of the schools. It was Shorewood and Grafton, and yes, they're having luck because they tightened, right? They got better at what they had. They changed their handbook language. They did some different things within their buildings. But the challenge they're now going to face with possible legislation changing is the exceptions. So now my student needs to have their cell phone. My student isn't going to follow this because I now have an exception saying I need to talk with, my student needs to talk with so-and-so at this time of the day, or whatever. There's lots of different exceptions. They need their phones for health reasons, they're monitoring, they're doing many different things. So we will have exceptions coming into our policy, and I believe that's probably going to come here in the next 6 months. And it's already passed the first level, it's going next, and it's most likely gonna land with the governor. And I think that because the exceptions are going to be what people are going to be in favor of. They're going to say, yes, have a cell phone policy that's stricter in your school districts, because many districts don't have them, but make sure that there's exceptions because parents truly want to be able to contact their child if they want to during the day. So that's where we're going to have to, that's why we have to be, we have to follow what we're doing in order to, when the change does happen, we're going to have to flex again.
But have we talked to our teachers? I mean, whether the state law gets changed or whatever, there's
Right.
legislation put out there, we have policy that says you can't do it, but yet kids are still doing it.
Right.
I mean, I spent several hours at the high school this past school year in the shadowing, and a lot of cell phone use, AirPods in, and kids weren't listening, and teachers, I believe, are trying to wrangle the kids in as best as possible. So, I mean, I think we need to talk to our teachers. At the teacher bank, when I talked to a couple teachers, and even at the elementary school, like, kids are whipping the phones out, and I understand parents might want them to, but they need also, then they should go talk to the teachers on the disruption that it causes. So whether there's legislation or we change policy, I think the teachers need to be brought in and have a conversation on what's really going on in the classroom.
But that's different from what our policy says. When our policy says refrain from it, that's an enforcement issue.
Yeah.
I think it's a language issue. That's why I wanted to change it. I mean, I'm encouraged in, I should refrain from speeding, but I don't. I speed. So I think the language in the handbook could be clearer. It could simply, no cell phone use allowed during class time. If students bring a cell phone to school, it should be powered down, left in a backpack, locker, etc. during instructional time. Students are allowed to use cell phones during passing time and lunch. I would recommend we put that in our handbook. It's easier to enforce. It may re-emphasize the policy so next year we can enforce it better. That is the only reason I brought this to the agenda. That's all I'm looking to
I
change.
do want to clarify, Dennis, because you did just say again, encouraged to refrain. That is not our current language. It is expected to refrain. So I think
to me, that's not a big change. That's not.
So what's the wording you're looking for?
I just read it.
What about PLTs?
Study halls. I mean, I think that would be classroom instruction. I would say that's part of the classroom instruction.
And I think that's our time, your time, which is already in our policy. So I'm just, it's hard for me because I'm not seeing really any difference in what you're saying versus what's currently in policy. I think we just have to do
Clearer,
a better job of
stronger
making it
language,
happen.
clearer, stronger language, basically what Spencer just read, it's pretty clear to me. The language right now is ambiguous, it's not clear.
You know, I think
I don't know how else to say it.
I see what direction you're going in, but I guess the reality I think that people need to grasp is this is a problem, right?
It is.
It's a major problem. And I think that you were approached probably because people want something done about it. And by having the policies and the way they're worded right now, it leaves it open to interpretation and whatever. I think what Dennis would like is it revisited so that it can be shored up and made stricter. Like, really, I mean, as a district, we spend a lot of money on this stuff, right? So they have the tools already they need to use in class. There really shouldn't be any reason for them to have them in class. I mean, I would bet if you go around this district and you ask people that work in these buildings, they're going to tell you 9 times out of 10 that the cell phone usage is a problem. Yes, there's going to be exceptions where people may have a medical device that they're monitoring or whatever, but I mean, the student population we have, you're talking about a handful of people versus the 10s and 20s in a classroom that are probably a distraction. So I think what should be probably considered in this is somehow eliminating the devices in classroom, period. They don't need them. They didn't have them before. They're provided a tablet. And if the parent really needs to get a hold of somebody, we have student email, correct? It's all on their devices.
Call the office.
Call the office. I mean, I know a lot of people don't have landlines at home, but we, as a district, pay for them in the building. I mean, use the stuff that we have already. There is no reason that it has to be used. I know my kids are probably sitting at home trembling right now because they're probably part of the problem. But it is. I mean, look at, we have to have groups and laws and things because this is causing accidents on the roadway and anything else. And any kind of policy where it leaves it open that they can have them just creates the environment for misuse. I mean, I hate the word like banning things because I mean, I enjoy my freedoms. I really do. But I just don't see a scenario where the phones are an absolute necessity for anybody unless they have, say, a medical device or something like that. I mean,
How will we, if we put something, handbook language is a little different than policy, how will we enforce and take care of, the second, third, fourth, fifth time that a high school student says, I'm not giving my phone up, I'm not, so where do we land with
so here's the funny thing is I listened to the policy for elementary school. It sounds like a kid who's in class for the 4th, 5th time needs to be handled how he's acting. If they can't make a mature enough decision that they can't keep their phone in their pocket, in their bag, in their car, or whatever, treat them like they're acting.
But then so then you have let's walk it through that. So then you have a parent that, so then what do we do? Do we suspend the student?
Yep, and what's a policy violation? If you're violating a policy, and I tell you what, you just got to deal with it. You know what? It's the same thing. Jenny said that if a student in elementary has that problem, and the parent has to come get that device, the office is going to hold it.
That's also in for.
I
mean, there
so
is specifically.
put it on the parent too. If that parent has to come in there 3 times to get that phone, I tell you what, if the second trip I had to make to get my kid's phone, he wouldn't have it anymore at school.
You're a different parent.
I understand, but we have to have expectations for that too.
We should talk to our teachers, find out, are there problems, and 2, do they feel like they're able to remove the problem from the classroom?
I agree.
Like if they say to a kid, all right, turn your phone off, and they respond back with something not so nice, like, are the teachers not getting the support they need? I'm not suggesting from the principals, but are they not getting support from the handbook and the policies in place? That's what I'd like to understand. From a teacher's point of view, what's really going on?
Yeah, I spent some time in the high school after Dennis first brought this up, and the teachers shared that this is the problem. This is one of the biggest problems right now is the iPads that we give them because it's hard to control YouTube. We've talked about that, but they didn't have a hard time managing their classrooms, they said. They had very few referrals, and I think I talked to administration at that time. They had few referrals about cell phones. When we were there shadowing a student, I watched them take a phone away from somebody in a PLC. The teacher got up, it was nonchalant, she took it right out of his hand and walked away, that was it. So, I mean, is it just an enforcement issue? You can change the word to whatever you want. Change the word, right? If that's really the hang up here, change the word. But I think the onus lies in the administration. Are we consistent? It sounds like we're not, right? Of what's happening classroom to classroom. And then what does the follow-up look like? I mean, we're not gonna have all the parents on the same page, right? Like, you're gonna take it very different. I talk to parents who are like, don't even think for 1 second. You're gonna take my kid's phone away. So there's the other side of that. So change the word. Let's see if Lindsay and Matt can get their arms around it, you know, and have some conversations with staff. What do you guys need from us? You know, what does that language look like? It sounds like we need different language, change the words, but I think it's still gonna be consistent enforcement and then the follow through of the repercussions of what that looks like.
And I also think too, you know, just like elementary level, you know, we focused on the behavior, right? And our elementary schools and all the teachers, and I can only speak to Glenbrook because my child went there, but behaviorally you did something wrong, everyone had the same first warning, right? Warning. The second level was, you know, you need to take a break or whatever. Third was, you know, we're gonna make a call to the parent. And that was consistent every single classroom. And we knew that referrals would be high, but then we would see that, okay, they know every teacher, no matter where I go in this building, 1, 2, 3, you know, consistency. I think we task our teachers to be consistent this next school year. See what it looks like with the policy that we have and know that the expectation, every classroom in that high school or every classroom in the middle school, that we're gonna follow 1, 2, 3 in our policy book, and that's gonna be consistent no matter what teacher you have, what classroom you're in, because I think the consistency across the board is where it matters, and that's where students too, you know, oh, I know that I can get one over on mom, so I'm not gonna ask dad to go on the sleepover, mom's gonna let me. You know, it's kind of like that with teachers too, where, oh, I know I can get away with my phone in this room, and maybe I can't in this other. So, I mean, I think it's kind of a staff situation too, more than a policy situation.
Yeah, but to Jen, your comment about parents, you know, dare you take my kid's phone away, then the parents should be encouraging their children to participate in an active learning environment, right? Mm-hmm. If not, if they do, then their kids won't be put in that situation. I mean, it's no different than any other thing that we don't allow in school buildings, vaping, tobacco, all that stuff. I mean, we have policies for that too. So, I don't know, I'd love to hear more from the teachers in the classrooms on what they're actually seeing and what they need.
Spencer just read a letter that pretty much said exactly what they need. And if there's clearer language that's easier to enforce and easier to understand for the student, the staff, and you, why wouldn't we just change it? That just seems so simple to me.
But I think the difficult part is there are steps. It takes each violation. So the first violation is warning. The student picks up the device from the attendance office at the end of the regular school day, or the device may need to be picked up on the next day after school if the staff member is unable to bring the device to the office. Second violation, they get detentions or structured lunch or structured PLT and a referral sent home. The device is picked up at the end of the day. Third violation, referral sent home, parent picks up the device, is required. Student can no longer have the device at school. Fourth and subsequent violations can result in OSS and can include a parent meeting for persistent refusal to follow school rules. Parent pickup of the device is required, referral sent home. Like, it is very laid out. It is very structured on violations.
But it's not being enforced.
It's
not being enforced, and
Something's not
maybe
lining up,
because
though.
there's not enough clarity in the handbook policy. And he just read a letter, and he is our staff, saying they want more clarity, more guidance. Why don't we just do it? Why is this such a difficult? Just to change the language in the handbook.
Spencer, how
regarding
many
cell
times
phones.
have you had to go through the steps?
Typically, I'd ask students to put them away, and then at least I have the respect from the students in the classroom that they will follow that. But still, like they still will use them. We'll get them out. I see YouTube a lot, so it's. I guess I don't go through all of those steps to then do the referral, but it's it's definitely students gravitate towards their phones during the day. As a teacher, I'm not as entertaining as YouTube. I mean, I try to get along with every student and build a connection, but they're always going to have that dopamine response to the bells and whistles in their phone, and so I know that they're not committing their full attention to the classroom environment.
I think that's the bigger conversation to have with the staff is, are you going to be willing to run through this process of your students respect you highly. I mean, I'm up in the art department enough that I know, and I know what a quiet environment that is, and I know that if your students are taking out their phones and you ask them, they most likely are going to put them away for you. But really, honestly, if you've got a repeat offender taking out their phone every day, they should be running through this process, right? So therein lies the continual non-following of our handbook. So I think that's the bigger problem is, even with steps of violation steps, or however, expectation steps and violating them, they're not working. So
But does it vary between grade levels? So if we're talking about a first grader, maybe giving 3 warnings makes sense. But a senior in high school,
Well, these are in our high school handbook.
I understand.
So it's not, it doesn't apply to a first grade. I don't know. I think I'm not sure what the process is. If first grader has it out multiple times, but like at the high school level.
My point was, depending upon the age of a child, the process should look different.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't treat a senior in high school the same as you treat a first grader saying, I'm going to give you 4 warnings. When you're 17, 18 years old, it should be pretty clear. But again, if we start early with something, by the time they get in the high school, the problem should just start to
It's literally in our philosophy to give 4th and 5th chances, and 3rd and 4th chances, right, Allison? Like, I know that you've said this multiple times, so I think it is fair that we are giving them multiple chances to correct the behavior. And if that's in the handbook and it's just not being enforced, then that's, I think, a new focus point that we have to go into the, our school year
and it
with.
just might not be the right process, and I guess that's something you guys need to have that conversation with. But that would be my worry, that we've got respected staff talking to us about this, but yet we're not running through that process either.
So are you implying stricter enforcement earlier? Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
if we start cleaning it up earlier by having a process in place. I mean, the more we put on the teachers to babysit the process, the less teaching they can do. A bigger disruption this actually creates. And I think the whole 2nd, 3rd, and 4th chances philosophy, I think that's maybe taken out of context when it comes to stuff like this. But again, I'd like to hear from the teachers. How big a problem do we really have? What do they think they need to be able to shore this up? Because constantly putting all this on the teachers and saying, oh, stop Johnny now from being on his phone, like, maybe they have a better idea. I don't know. The policy needs to be cleaned up no matter what, right? Clear language, but then also, what do our teachers need? They're the ones dealing with this, none of us.
I'm not sure if the language needs to be clear. I'm not recommending that. I think that we can look at it. I think that we can have a conversation around it. I'm not sure if the language in the handbook is incorrect. I think we need to have a deeper conversation around what's the root cause here that we're having the conversation around cell phones. And maybe this is more of like a parent community listening session. Like, hey, we got to get in on this together. What are we going to do? Other school districts have moved towards putting phones, in lockers in high schools. They've moved towards things like having baskets on desks. They've had caddies. It truly is just how things are enforced within the classroom environment. I don't know how to get around that. So
I think also, and I think Brenda's here, right?
Yep.
I see Brenda. When I look at the middle school, what they have in here, and it's not as much, and they didn't include even their violations and what happens, but I know in conversations between middle school and high school, you guys have said that for the most part, you don't have that many violations because kids just leave them in their lockers.
For the most part, I think there's a couple of situations that become a little bit challenging even for us. is when kids hide it in their personal area, swimsuit areas. They'll do that and go to the bathroom, or the ways just like anything else that we have that they hide it, or they switch to some other type of technology communication. So for example, we found out earlier in the school year that instead of using phones, they were using the Remind app on their iPad. And so they were texting each other in essence, all day long. And so we worked with technology and we're able to get that app shut down. So I think wherever you go, there's always going to be something else they're going to use. They're going to look at some new app or some new way of communicating. I just think that just that random scrolling during downtime is probably the part that needs to be addressed. And I think that's not necessarily policy, that's enforcement piece. And we don't have that problem in middle school. I would say per se, like the kids when if they have any kind of downtime or whatever, they're not sitting on their phones and scrolling. They can't have their phones.
So would you say that at the middle school your staff is pretty consistent on?
Yes, they're really good.
I would agree.
They'll turn in, phones, and then we have like a progression for violation that's outlined in the handbook.
So I think it goes back to what Heidi was saying, was that we really got to work on a consistent approach at the high school. We have everything in the policy, it's just we aren't consistent in how it's enforced and how it's followed.
And an easy way for teachers, and maybe where the loophole is, again, the time in the classroom. The teacher wants to be focusing on getting their, lesson out, and they don't have time to be, babysitting Johnny and walking him down to the office or taking his cell phone. So then maybe that's something that you can work with the teachers and see, what collaboratively you can come up with for the solutions of how they can address it without interrupting their classroom instruction. And whatever that may look like, I don't know offhand, but that might be a better solution to interrupting the whole classroom to address one kid on their phone or two kids on their phones.
Is the wording in the middle school and high school handbooks the same?
Sorry, what was that?
Is the wording in the middle and the high school handbooks the same?
No, like this is what's in, and you guys do have access because I went back in the box last night to reread them. So it's the July 17th meeting of last year. So this is the middle schools, and then the high schools starts at this part and then goes a full page and then bumps into the next page. And they have all of the components that we've talked about needing to have, but this one is more followed and enforced and regulated.
It could just be too comprehensive at the high school. I mean, you know what I mean? It just could be too much and it just needs to be simplified. I don't know.
I just don't think it's fair for us to sit here and say some teachers are doing some things and some teachers aren't. We just don't know. We're all making assumptions right now.
Absolutely.
And to say it's perfect at the middle school, I don't know. I mean, if they're doing something.
It's not perfect.
Right, but if it's working well, then what's going on different there that others can learn from? It's like everything else we do. I mean, in the business world, you can make it turn your phone off when you're meeting, so it gets you ready for the world too. But.
Yeah, and I just think that, we have to remember, these are 6th through 8th graders as opposed to 9th through 12th graders, right? It's also progression of a student as well. So 9th through 12th graders, you're already, we have the assumption that they're going to be able to handle their device. We are continuing as they go into their sophomore, junior, senior year. I mean, our juniors are leaving our campus. They're leaving our campus and going out and doing youth apprenticeship. So, that's not always reality when they go to their youth apprenticeship stop either, that they aren't allowed to use their device. So we have to kind of find that balance. A couple teachers have talked to me from the high school and have said things like, yeah, sometimes it's just innocent. You make connections with kids and you trust that they're going to do the right thing, and you let them listen to music, and then they go into another classroom, and then maybe they don't have the same relationship, and then they think that they can listen to their music, and then they kind of use that against the next person. It's just, they're kids, right? I mean, you said it. It's going to be mom against dad, and it's just a difficult balance, and it's a horrible balance for our staff to try to figure out all of that. So, you know, we're trying to
And that's
engage
why-
them, we're
that's
trying
why-
to help them learn, we're trying to, you know, sometimes kids need that getaway to concentrate and do their work.
I think if you look at the way that the middle school and high school policies are written, they're drastically different. And the middle school policy tells the students when they can, when they're permitted on a limited basis, when they can use them, where they can use them, and how they can use them. It's very clear. It's kind of like one of those things when you write something you want to ensure or even discipline, you want to tell the person what they should be doing and how you would expect them to be behaving versus all the punitive things that would go along with it. So if you look at that, and I think maybe the enforcement of the middle school is working pretty well because they know when they can. It's not taking something away, it's like this is when you can do it. So just a perspective.
So maybe we simplify the high school.
Could be.
The handbook revisions you guys are continuing to review those, right? And you're evaluating them for the upcoming school year?
Right, I think we bring handbooks in July.
July 23rd, you will approve them.
Okay, so this is something that, as part of your revisions and review of this is something you can take a look at to see if there's anything you feel you need to shore up at that high school level?
That'll do it.
Okay, anything else on that? No. All right, second citizens forum. All right. Go ahead,
Corey
Corey.
Zulik, 612 Pebblestone Circle. Interesting enough, this conversation took place last night at a Boy Scout meeting. A policy was put in place. There's some children, and a lot of this comes down to parenting. The same kid on a cell phone every night at the meetings, parents are never there. Expectation for parents when your kids go to school, don't be on your phone all the time. As an adult, 2 children, one in middle school in Illinois, both have cell phones, smartphones. They get 2 hours a day, 1 hour YouTube time. They bring their school iPad home, unlimited YouTube time, whatever they want to look at. So, yes, my son's got ADHD. Any distraction, electronics, it's terrible. So as a parent, I put the restrictions on them at home. And now I know parents that, hey, they want to get a hold of their kids. And I believe you mentioned about email. If a parent emails their student's email from the outside, does that email come through or is it restricted? If it's restricted, that's another option where, hey, I'm going to pick you up from school today, so you ride the bus. That email will get sent to the kid. He can see that. He doesn't need to be on his phone. But I think it's parents' restrictions of limiting what your kid can do. If you choose to give your child a phone, I mean, my daughter today asked her, she's going to be in 5th grade. Yep, there's kids behind their book on their phone in elementary school. I mean, we've created a distraction by giving our kids iPads. That is the first thing. Technology is great, but being on an iPad all day during COVID and they're at home is horrible. And now in the school, like, I have to rip it out of my son's hand. And he cries because I'm taking his technology away. Dad, I'm on it all day at school. So as a parent, it's hard. Pull the restrictions away at home, but he's on them at school. So yeah, I agree there should be some guidelines, but it comes down to parenting. What you expect your kids to do when they go to school. You're going to give them a phone and they're not going to be responsible at home, at the school, then parents take it away. I mean, some of it's on the parents too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Amy?
Amy Schwartz, W598 Hoffa Park Drive. One thing I wanted to add to that is I think all the policies that you read all said cell phones, but I know at the elementary level, the kids are all on their watches. So if you could change that language of not just cell phones, because there's no restrictions on their smartwatches of taking pictures of other kids and getting messages from their moms on that. So if you could look at that. And I feel like the parent thing, Allison, how you had mentioned like parents are going to be mad about it. Yeah, well, oh well. So what? Because I love Coors Light. I'm not going to send Bruce to school in a Coors Light shirt because I know that I can't, you know? So when there's an expectation, it's going to be hard at first and then that's it. And you said sometimes kids need a getaway to do their work, and I just watched all our teachers right here all go, no they don't. So I don't think that's really a valid excuse. I agree, Dennis. Our high school should have the same policy as our middle school, no phones at all in classrooms, period, end of story. And that should be district-wide, but with the language part, please include smart devices in general, not just cell phones.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Can I add one more thing?
Go ahead, Corey.
It has bugged me for a long time coming to these meetings, and I'm just being transparent. We need to lead by example. Now, how many times do I come to these meetings and every bit of administration has their computers up, doing stuff on it? If they're not presenting, I mean, that's just the same thing as a kid being on his iPhone in school. To me, that's a distraction. As a community member, I'm coming here for the meeting, and the rest of the people from the administration that are here that are on their devices, they're not giving the same attention as, they're just like the children that are on their phones in the school, in my opinion. I mean, that's when somebody comes to every meeting. That's just the truth. If, you know, they could be doing work, but they're just as distracted as a kid in the school and on their phone, so.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Anyone else? All right.
Mark has something.
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, I'll speak as a parent, a community member. Cell phone policy does not impact me, right? I work a 40-plus hour week. My kid's at T-ball right now. If everyone can see I was in Skyward. I did my work today that I didn't do during my presentation. I checked messages about how my kid was doing at T-ball. I'm going to do that at every meeting. And some things don't apply to all administrators. So if we're using time to work, I'm sorry, cell phone policy does not impact my immediate work. I listened, good conversation. Don't take that as we're not paying attention or, it's a different comparison. I just want to answer that for every administrator that sits at these meetings and has daily tasks to complete. So.
Thank you. Our next business meeting is in this room on June 18th. On the agenda right now is APR reporting for Glenbrook, WIAA membership for the next school year, the initial 25-26 draft budget, CISA 8 contract, school perceptions, and SRO quarterly updates.
And it doesn't mean that they're in that order. That's just
what's on the agenda.
That's just what's on the agenda.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night, everyone.